Why is it that I get more and more excited with each Draft on Tap show? It's because we're getting closer and closer to the draft. In fact, this is the week, guys. This is the week we actually do the draft. And if you've been following us since the beginning or picked up somewhere during our run here of Draft on Tap shows, you know what we've been doing. Our scouts, Danny Shimon, our lead draft analyst, and Niel Stopczynski, they have been poring over tape for the last several months. They've viewed well over 150 players. It could be close to 200 players. And we have been building towards this week. It's going to be a tremendous week. And today we're going to talk about safeties. And I have never seen a more disparate list between these two guys than I've seen with this list of top safeties that they've put together. And I think that is a prelude to tomorrow's show when we discuss and finalize the big board for our show on Wednesday when we do our mock draft. So I've got a feeling there's going to be some pounding of the table, some heavy-duty discussion between Danny and Niel, and it's just going to be a portent of things to come tomorrow. And let's bring the guys in now. Danny Shimon, Niel Stopczynski, how are you, fellas? Starting with you, Mr. Shimon. How are you, brother?
I am just as excited as you are. Like I said, this has been the the week that we all been kind of working towards here. With us, going through our shows and pouring through over the tapes and all that stuff. So definitely excited. I just noticed. I don't know if Niel caught that, but you in that opening monologue, the little montage of football players. I noticed how you nicely snuck in a little Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace in there too.
I did. That's right. Good eye. Good eye. I did indeed put in the guys who are going to be making the real decisions, but I hope that they'll be watching our mock draft show on Wednesday because it's going to be really sensational. But it all starts with the big board tomorrow's show. Right. Niel, are you ready to start pounding the table and go mano a mano with Danny?
Amped up, man. Let's go. Back here in Studio B, man. Running on fumes, but still excited. The knee feels normal again. Ready to go.
Nice. I was just going to ask you about your knee. You had some fluid in the knee. We were doing some last week, but it's better now, huh?
Yeah, this thing looked like a grapefruit last week, man. I don't know what it was. I couldn't bend it for 2 days. Couldn't walk for one. And now it's back to normal. I woke up Monday or was it yesterday? What day is it? I have no idea.
Today's Monday, yeah.
Is it Monday? Okay. I woke up Monday morning. Woke up this morning, feeling great. Woke up yesterday morning, feeling pretty good. So hey, I don't know what it was, but I rested the hell out of it, iced the hell out of it. We're good to go now.
Great. I still have you down as a medical red flag on your report. So we're going to have to knock down your grade there for a little bit.
Niel, when you played football, what position did you play?
I didn't play football. I played hoops.
Oh, okay. So you're a point guard, huh?
I was I played every position. I mean, back in the day when I was, one of the taller guys in my class, I played every position. But basically 2 and 3 was my positions, 2 and 3.
Sweet. And Danny, you played football. You were a safety, correct?
No, I was defensive lineman, defensive tackle, and some tight end, blocking tight end. Yeah, I was a fatter kid.
Yeah, you were. That's right. I remember now. You had more weight on you. You've lost quite a few pounds over the years, haven't you?
I'm trying to look sexy for you.
That's not working. All right, guys.
Now that you mentioned Niel as a basketball player, he does have a little Jason Williams, little white chocolate look to his face.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. Telling you.
Good. That is good. We'll have to get you together with the Sea Red Radio guys and Coach Laro and play some basketball this summer. That'd be fun. Put some videotape up on our network. That'd be a great time.
And also embarrassing. So here we go.
That's right.
I think now we'll both have swollen knees. Both me and Niel will have swollen knees then.
Yeah, it'll be embarrassing if I take a shot. That's for sure. I haven't shot a basketball in about 5-6 years. But let's talk safeties. And as we do with every show, when we're digging into a position group, we analyze where the safety class is, or the safety position is currently with the Chicago Bears. And so we're talking about Eddie Jackson, and we're talking about Tashawn Gibson. Danny, what do you think about these two safeties? Are you comfortable with them coming into the year as starters? And what do you think about the depth on the team?
Yeah, in terms of the starters, I mean, obviously Eddie Jackson's needs to rebound from the last year and a half in which he hasn't been playing up to par, in my opinion. Tayshaun Gibson, I think, had a solid season. It wasn't spectacular by any stretch of the imagination, but I think he's a solid complement to Eddie Jackson. I think him being signed back to a modest 1 year veteran contract was a solid re-signing there by Pace and company. So. The depth behind him, I mean, Deion Bush has always been seemingly the backup safety here in Chicago for the past, 6, 7, 8 years. DeAndre Houston Carson, a guy that I'm very high on coming out of William & Mary. I really got some snaps last year and on defense and made some, game-saving plays. I remember one against Tampa Bay, and I believe also against Panthers as well. So I wish he'd get more of an opportunity to play some regularly on at safety, but he's been primarily a special teams guy. So the depth behind the starters is something where we're looking at here. Niel and I were looking at, and this is a class, and Niel can talk to it in terms of his opinion. But for me, if you're looking for safety this year in the draft, this is not a really good class to be looking at. You talked about earlier in the show how mine and Niel's list differs. Is because it's kind of pick your own poison here. I mean, there's like a handful of guys that really are at the top of the class, and then the rest of the guys are just what you're looking for and what you want, just kind of picking seeing traits that you like. A lot of these guys got to make make the football team on special teams, and then hopefully use some of their skill sets that they shown in college to go ahead and develop and get better throughout the seasons. But really, I didn't have a first round grade at any of these safeties.
Yeah, neither did I. I think I had a couple of. I think I had about a handful of day two guys that I really liked, and then the rest of it was just a bunch of spattering of interesting dichotomies of traits and combinations of skills and everything else. It's a weird class. I think we were talking the other night, Danny, about how frustrated I was coming ooff of a position group in the quarterbacks right. that I really loved watching. It was a lot of fun to watch, and then we transitioned into safeties, and like most of these guys can't tackle. Like, what are we doing at the college level? What are we doing? So that was kind of frustrating. But yeah, there are about 5 to 7 guys that I really like, and then the rest of it is just either developmental guys or special teams guys or whatever the case may be. In terms of the current roster, I mean, you obviously talk about Tayshaun Gibson, you talk about Eddie Jackson. Gibson, I actually I applauded the signing of Gibson last week on the show because I think that's a dude that is about as solid as the day is long, right? Like he's reliable, he's consistent, he's not going to lose a game for you. He's going to be in the right spots. Veteran, been in the league for a long time. Unfortunately, been in some franchises that could not get their act together, but he's finally found himself in a spot where I think he's really relishing the role. I think he's really good in that role as well. And then Eddie Jackson, I don't know if obviously if you guys have known anything about me over the course of the years, that I get absolutely irritated when our secondary can't make a tackle on the open field, and Eddie Jackson has been the bane of my existence as far as that goes since September. So this class is interesting because you do have a few guys that are really good in terms of physicality and tackling, and bring that to the table with some interesting athletic measurables and size and length. So in no way are we looking at any of these guys to maybe replace anybody, maybe down the road perhaps, but we're not looking at anybody to replace anybody next year, that's for sure.
All right, guys, let's take a look at each of your lists. Again, all season long, I don't think I've seen a list that there were so many differences. Usually you guys are pretty close, especially at the top, and agreeing with players. But as you can see here, Danny's top player is not found on Niel's list until number 3, and that's Trayvon Mooring. And Richie Grant is number 2. Javon Holland, this is Danny's list. Javon Holland, number 3. Andre Sisco, number 4. Divine Diablo, number 5. Damar Hamlin, number 6. Jamar Johnson, number 7. Hamshar. Whoa, boy, that's a tough one, man. I'm going to skip that one and just say this.
Naziruddin.
Thank you. And number 9, Sean Davis. And number 10, Richard LeCount, who is not even on Niel's list. That's not the only player not on Niel's list. And then Niel's got Javon, Andre Sisco, Trevon, Diablo, Hamza, Richie Grant, Tyree Gillespie, not found on Danny's list, Damar Hamlin, number 8, Ardarius Washington, not found on Danny's list, and James Wiggins. So why don't we start at the top? Danny, why don't you tell me why Trevon Moehrig is your top safety?
Yeah, for me, it was close between him and Richie Grant, and it just came down to basically, I think, his ability to cover and be a little bit more versatile than Grant is. However, but I mean, it was pretty close. Like this kid, Moehrig played corner and receiver in high school. He's a 2020 Jim Thorpe Award winner, the first team All Big 12, second team All American. As a team captain this past season, a 2-year starter with 24 games of experience under his belt. For me, this is a quick, athletic, free safety who moves like a cornerback, really. Has that nimble feet, the stop and go abilities, it can easily flip his hips, turn and run with the receiver, good closing burst, has run down speed to be able to chase and tackle from behind, good processor, reads and reacts, has got that skill set, good route recognition, be able to peel off his man and jump at those underneath routes. In terms of run defense, he's quick to trigger downhill, smooth transition out of his breaks, very little wasted movement with this kid, plants, drives, and accelerates to the football, shows good range and ball skills, had an outstanding production on the football, 28 passes defense, 7 interceptions in his career. Kid can also come down and cover the slot. Good balance and body control to break down and secure tackles in space is what I saw with this kid here. We talked about earlier, some of these safeties have trouble, breaking down and tackling in space. I think, Moehrig is not perfect, but he's a guy that I think of the rest of them is probably a little bit, better than all of them. In terms of some of the things that concern me, obviously a thin frame, slight build, lacks the take on strength, needs to add some bulk. Play strength, I would call just adequate. Can misjudge and take some bad angles to the football is something that I caught on tape as well, which caused him to go out and get out of position, and sometimes miss some tackles that way. So, those are some of the things that concern me with him, but, a guy that can give you some versatility and be able to come down, like I said, cover the slot receiver, give you that range in the back end of the defense to be able to go from hash mark to the sidelines, to give you that over the top, help and support is what, this kid gives you.
This kid was, if I looked at Trevon, I looked at Andre Sisco and Javon Holland. Those are all 3 guys that to me were damn near interchangeable. All right. Trevon, I agree with a lot of everything you said. I love his length and his body type. I liked his range, his movement skills. He was smooth in his back pedal like a corner. He moved around like a cornerback. For all of the film that I watched on him, floats around the field. Versatile in his role for TCU. So like he's another guy. I value versatility on these guys, kind of like I did with the corners as well. He's another guy that you can trust to load up his play in the passing game. I thought his ability to play the run needed a lot of work. He lacks hard hitting physicality in his game. He has to prove to be more reliable as a tackler. However, his coverage ability is the one thing that doesn't go unnoticed. Going back to the Oklahoma game last year, that was, to me, the perfect snapshot of Moehrig at his best. Targeted several times, stood tall, several PBUs, showed a higher level ability to, mirror, redirect with the receiver. Seems to have excellent awareness and instincts. If at worst should go by, the end of day 2 or the end of round 2, rather. Pretty impressed by this kid. Liked him a lot. Could have easily been my number 1. I had other reasons why I had Javon and Andre Sisco ahead of him. So,
in terms of the next guy on my list, Richie Grant, and this is a guy that we saw at the Senior Bowl practices, and it's going to be, I think, second or third guy that I saw at the Senior Bowl practice that really caught my eye. And with Grant, another one, it was real close with him and Moehrig in terms of being at the top overall safety. This guy played both sides of the football in high school, was a corner and a receiver. Was also a track athlete, a 3-time first team All AAC back in 2019 and 2020. Led the team in tackles and interceptions in both 18 and 19. 3-year starter, 33 starts under his belt. So that's very good experience. You see a lot of tape on this kid. Again, another kid here has got solid size, right? With good arm length, 32+ inch arm length, possesses that run and chase, speed, which allows him to fly all over the football field, make plays, loose hips to be able to change and redirect. Another one that processes real quickly, it recognizes route patterns and diagnoses run versus pass almost instantaneously, post snap. Aggressive downhill to run the lane, speed and burst to flatten around the corner and chase down a running back from the backside. Comfortable playing in the box and around the line of scrimmage, right? Another guy that gives you the versatility, a guy that can come down and cover the slot receiver, but also is not out of place when you put him up in the box there. Alert in coverage, with very good field vision, anticipation to read the quarterback's eyes and adjust. Can cover the slot, which you talked about, stay in phase downfield with the receiver, plays fast and displays coverage instincts. Terrific hands, again, former receiver. He's got some ball skills, 10 interceptions, 27 pass defense in his career. Again, another one that's physical at the catch point. You can go up and contest some of these catches with these receivers. Some of the things that kind of made him second for me was he's going to be a 24-year-old rookie next season. So, is he a guy that's going to be able to get a second contract from you? So, we'll see how that displays some hesitation at times when he's attacking downhill. At the times, you'll see some issues with him locating the ball as well. So his play speed isn't quite there yet. Has some pretty good instincts, but just that play speed, for whatever reason, just wasn't always on point. Can lose his man in coverage when he's peeking into the backfield. So I always talk about my guys that are, in coverage. I like them to have some sort of feel. If they're going to look back into the backfield, look at the quarterback, at least have, use your arm or something to feel out and know where your receiver is at. A couple of times Grant lost his guy as he was trying to, peek into the backfield and the guy got open downfield. Adequate over the top range is what I think he's got. He can arrive a tad bit late in terms of, giving this corner some help. So again, that's all just, reading and reacting quickly and being able to just kind of, go with the flow as soon as the ball is snapped. So, and again, we talked about, you talked something with Mooring in terms of being physicality. This guy's not a strong physical tackler. He's more of a shoulder dive striker, which, you'd see that. Sometimes you see running backs just kind of bouncing off of that and continuing downfield. And I want to see a guy that comes up, a safety at least, come up, square up what you're going to tackle, wrap up and bring him down. So those are some areas in his games that he can continue to get better at. Overall, for me, this kid's just an athletic, interchangeable safety that displays the good coverage skills and the ability to play in the box and near the line of scrimmage. So it's funny because when I was watching him, it kind of had some flashbacks to Charles Woodson when he was with the Packers, where he was, no longer the corner, he was more of a safety, and just the ability to come down and be a solid run defender, but also be a guy that can carry tight ends down the field and cover receivers out of slot. That's some of the vibes he gave me when I watched his tape.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily think that way. I had him a little further on down my list. He was number 6 for me. I actually had him an early day 3 guy, mainly because and the one thing that really drove me nuts, not just about him, but about a lot of these guys, is that you look at some of these testing numbers for pro days, you don't see that stuff on the field. I didn't see a 4.49 or a 35 vert or a 6.78 3 cone on the field. Those were numbers that made me have like the eyebrow, like, huh? So, I mean, with him, I think we felt a lot of the same things about this kid. He was a little bit further down because I really value like physicality and, an attacking nature in a safety. I felt, based off of his highly productive career and tons of experience, I should have seen, more decisive playmaking ability from the kid. He floated well. He did lack elite range. He appeared apathetic frequently, I thought, inconsistent as an attacker. You talked about him, his inability at times to be able to read break, take a great angle, and make a play on the ball, right? Too often misses tackles in the open field and badly, in my opinion. Struggles changing direction as he plays high and narrow and looks, cumbersome in movement was one of the notes that I had, because a lot of times he just looks like he's kind of struggling to, make the right movement, reacting to the ball, reacting to the receiver, wherever the case may be. I think that's more of a technique thing that could be coached out of him, but it was kind of concerning to me for a guy that's played as many games as he had. Definitely more of a ball hawker, obviously, than a run supporter, but he does show above average ball skills, solid intelligence. And, the thing I love about him is he wants to be the defensive quarterback. Like that is something that is, he pounds the table about, being the leader of the defense. And so that's definitely something that's, refreshing to see with this kid. When it comes down to his physicality, he's definitely more of a hitter than a tackler. When it comes down to his cover skills, definitely more of a zone player than a man-to-man guy. But, I thought he was a solid player. He wasn't a guy that I was looking to go ahead and invest a lot into early. But definitely a guy I want to bring in, and he would easily be an upgrade to the room. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah, I mean, and at the Senior Bowl down in Mobile, I mean, he showed some of those that slot cover one-on-one skills, and as well also his ability to go ahead and be a ball hawk and get, make a play on football as well. So I think he improved some of that, or demonstrated some of that ability, I should say, down in Mobile. I think that really kind of elevated him in some of the scout sides as well. So okay. I think we have a question in the chat here. It says, do you think safeties are less physical now because of college football is all about throwing the football? Well, I mean, it's funny you say that, because if you look at the old way of scouting, we used to say, all right, free safety, box safety, strong safety. That's kind of thrown out the window now, and some of it is because coaches want safeties that are interchangeable because of what is it, 60% of the time, 70% of the time they're defending the pass. So if you have a box safety, a traditional quote unquote box safety, a guy who's going to be a 2-down guy who's going to be help defend the run. If you're throwing football 70% of the time, offenses are, that guy is going to be obsolete. So that's why now coaches want those guys that can be both, versatile, be a guy that can come up and defend the run and also drop back and be, not a liability in coverage, be responsible in coverage as well. So I think that has changed, and I think that's carried over to the NFL. Like I was looking at that, like this past couple of days, and I was looking at these safeties. I'm like, we're no longer saying, hey, box safety, strong safety. We're just saying safeties. And like I said, coaches want these guys to be interchangeable.
Right. And these guys that are box safeties now are the guys that are going later in the draft, kind of like the box linebacker, kind of like the pigeonhole Mike. These guys are going later on the draft. They're going to be special teams guys. They're going to be role players. There's no longer a guy that's, I don't want to say there's no more Ronnie Lott. Ronnie Lott's a special dude. But I mean, his whole thing was physicality and knocking guys on their ass. You don't just have that prerequisite anymore. You need guys that can move, guys that can tackle, guys that can be physical, but guys that are also, free and rangy and, can make plays on the ball. So
now, if you're Jamal Adams, a guy can do both, be physical at point of contact, at line of scrimmage, and also drop back and be, not great in coverage, but be solid in coverage. Those are the Pro Bowl safeties now.
Right. Exactly. So, I think, that the top two guys on my list, we went to top two on yours, that the top two guys on my list were number one, Javon Holland from Oregon. The reason why I had this guy number one was because, not only, has he had, 27 career games played, 108, tackles, 4.5 for loss, 9 picks, and 10 passes broken up, pretty good productivity. He showed up at pro day about 10 pounds heavier than what was suggested as his playing weight during the year, which shows, again, like some of these other guys I talked about, he came into pro day and he meant business, tested very well, opened some serious eyes. For those that haven't seen it, he measured at 6 foot, 207, ran 4.46 on the 40, a 4.14 shuttle, 35.5 on the vert, 10.6 on the broad, bench press 19 reps of 225, which, really good for, again, safeties. You want them to be, strong physical dudes. If you get up around 18, 19, 20 reps on the bench, pretty damn good, pretty, close to elite. He was already a guy that presented the ability to be versatile for the modern NFL. Played a lot of nickel and slot coverage at Oregon. This guy that opted out 2020, so we didn't have a whole lot of film this year. He almost suffered from that out of sight, out of mind thing, right? Recency bias. But you go back to 2019, he played a lot of nickel, a lot of slot coverage, has cornerback skills in that regard, which, will help him in the transition to the NFL. He's got explosive tendencies, loose hips, has a suddenness to be able to react, make a play on the ball. I talked about the 9 picks in his career. He's a turnover creator, and it seems quite natural with his ball skills. Adds value in his ability to produce as a returner as well. So, special teams value. Got some electricity with the ball in his hands. Has some room to develop, really, and having not played a true safety position yet. But he has baseline, to me, athletic tools to be a playmaker downfield. Just didn't see enough of him asserting his will physically, but that's not necessarily his game. Not saying that he's not willing to do it, though, right? So high football IQ will allow him to fit in many places. I absolutely love this kid. I thought he was really unique.
Yeah, I wish he had played this year. I mean, like that 1 year starter, it's something that I wanted more tape on him. He came in high on my list in terms of this season. Really, a lot of things you mentioned is some things I have here from him as well. The size, the athletic ability, a guy can come down and cover the slot receiver, can carry tight ends down the field, up the seam or whatnot. All these things that, I like about him as well. For me, and I like the special teams aspect too. He had 16 returns in 2019 for 244 yards, averaging 15.3 yards a return. So, those are all positives. The one couple of things that I saw on tape, or, for me, he displayed some change of direction issues in the open field. I don't know if it's hip stiffness, his lower, ankle stiffness, or whatnot. I saw some of that change of direction bothered me. For me, that limits his coverage range in the back end and recovery quickness when beaten. Get tall out of his back pedal. We talked about that with the corners, getting tall and losing leverage and getting all whacked out with your feet. Saw some of that as well. Can get caught peeking in the backfield. And again, this is a guy that is very, very aggressive. He likes to make plays on the ball, whether jumping routes or coming downhill and being aggressive as a run defender. But there's times where he got caught flat-footed and the guy ran right by him and he was just sit there looking at in the backfield. So those are some things that he could get coached out of him. His aggression and run defense gets him guessing and getting him in trouble and out of position at times, right? He's a guy that he'll guess that he's going to fill this lane, the running back's going in this lane, and the running back kind of cuts off of that and goes into the lane, and he's kind of stuck in that no man's land there. So gets himself out of position. So some of the things, maybe technique-wise, coaching-wise, that can be coached up on him. But overall, I think this kid's an athletic, competitive safety, with solid ball skills, has some physical and coverage limitations in my opinion, but can be an asset on special teams. So, he's number 3 on my list. I just like the other two. I think the other two give you a little bit more coverage, reliability and on the back end of it. But, definitely a guy, I like his size at 6'1", 216 too.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, the next guy on my list would have been my easy number 1 if it wasn't for the recent injury history, the bizarre stuff that he's had, happen to him over the course of the past couple of seasons. But Andre Sisco from Syracuse, the film that he's put up from the past, 2-3 years, I absolutely love this kid. And if it wasn't for, so he had missed games in 2019 for lower body injuries, how colleges like to do that. And then this past season, he had this freak accident in pregame where he collided with one of his teammates and blew out his ACL, right? Yeah. And so he played 2 games this year, had like a really, really productive first 2 games of the year. Probably would have gone on to have just astronomical numbers and easy, I want to say maybe easy first team All-American, but surely easily, would have been designated probably safety number 1 on a lot of people's boards. And it probably wouldn't have been close. But, to me, like this kid, as long as he comes back healthy and he's able to stay healthy, injuries aren't really a concern. I think, this is probably my favorite kid that I watched. He was, over the course of his career, 136 tackles, 2 for loss, 13 picks, 29 passes defensed, ridiculous productivity. 2018 was the only full season that he played because of these injury issues. In terms of his physicality, man, I love the way this dude plays from a physical standpoint, especially for his size too. He's under 6 foot at 5'11", 3/4, 209. But he will bow up to blockers. He will physically compete with anybody, comes downhill with conviction, fills lanes, crashes the box effectively, closes fast, plays a lot of energy and a lot of edge. And again, I talk about energy and juice and everything else. Like that stuff's infectious, man. Like you need that. And especially from the safety position, guys that are sort of looked at as defensive quarterbacks, you need that stuff. So, he shows high level instincts, in the back half, ball hawking, type dude. They had him playing all over the field at Syracuse, which speaks to him as an impact player and his, football intelligence overall. Again, like I talked about with Trevon, the ability to load up his play and him be able to go ahead and make stuff happen. He could play at either safety position for me at the next level because he's smart, instinctive, great awareness, physical, tackles well. He's a ball magnet, top class all around player. Just again, the biggest question, the ACL, the injury history, can he stay healthy? How that heals? Will he be the same guy? Pre-ACL, has a speed, can move laterally, showed very good short area burst. Again, it would have been my number 1 safety had it not been for the issues.
Yeah, the 2 key words you said with this kid is ball hawk. He had 13 interceptions in his first 2 seasons. That's damn impressive. And if he played a full season, he'd probably add to those totals this year as well. So for me, this is a in-box safety. I like his physicality in and around the line of scrimmage. He's a guy that can take on blockers and either slip them, shed them, and get to the ball carrier, which I love. The only thing I disagree with you with is I don't trust him as a single high safety. I don't think he's got the speed and the range to be able to get to sideline to sideline to be able to give you that over the top help. I like him more as a guy that's going to be in or near or at the line of scrimmage for me. That's how I like him. Because again, that physicality, his ability to take on blockers and be able to go ahead and be a secure tackler as well. So he'll be a nice complement to an Eddie Jackson here. Let Eddie Jackson be that ball hawking single high safety and let this guy kind of be up close more to the line of scrimmage. So again, that injury was a bit of a freak and as unfortunate for him. But yeah, I mean, this kid is just a ball hawking playmaker, and he would have been probably one of my one or two safeties coming in if he had stayed healthy and kind of improved some of that back end coverage issues that I had with him as well. So I think this kid's, like I said, be a very nice compliment if the Bears are able to get someone like this on the roster.
100%. That's exactly it. In terms of his number one position, where I would slot him would be at strong next to Eddie, right? Because that's pretty much what he played. But I mean, he plays so many different positions over at Syracuse. I wouldn't be scared about him playing single high. I would not. But again, we haven't seen him do too much of it, so you don't really have the empirical data to say he can or can't.
Yeah. Oh, before the ACL injury, I saw him just being tired late and just getting over there. It was just a reacting or whatnot, but it was just something that kind of bothered me and watching him, be that lone guy back there, the last line of defense, if you will. So we'll see how it comes back from the ACL injury. Hopefully, it doesn't hinder him at all. But definitely a guy that I like, in terms of a safety prospect coming into the NFL next season. So I think my next guy was number 5 on my list was Divine Diablo. I'm not sure if he was that high on your list as well. So Aldo, if you're listening, you asked me to do a little bit of a homework project to find you a guy that can probably get in day 3 of the draft that could be a nice compliment to Eddie Jackson. I think Andre Cisco is a guy that I think is going to go higher than they, the 4th, 5th round area or something like that. But this kid Diablo intrigues the hell out of me. I mean, you put on this tape, or first of all, 6'3", 226 is his size. This kid was a quarterback and a receiver in high school. Came to Virginia Tech as a wide receiver, actually. Played 2016 as a receiver, then switched over to defense. Last year, 2020, was a first-team All-ACC. I was a team captain, led the team in pass defense and interceptions, a 3-year starter. Missed 2 games last year due to injury, but put on his tape, and this guy looks like a will linebacker playing safety. He's got the size, the athletic ability, good straight line athlete, with the speed, the burst to be able to close in on a ball carrier quickly, the size, the length, 33-inch arm length on this kid. Kid's a monster back there at safety. He can read, recognize routes, developing in coverage. So he's not a guy that's just, in the box guy. He can drop back and give you something in coverage as well. Runs a lane and fills with physicality, as a run defender. The Bears fans would love this guy coming down and just being that big hulking safety that's going to be able crashing running backs in the hole there. Can cover the slot, can carry tight ends. Surprisingly, that's what when I put on his tape on, I saw the size. I'm like, oh, this guy's not going to be able to, get downfield. But I saw him, play against Hunter Long in Boston College, and I see him, staying step for step with Long down the field, down the seam. So you can carry tight ends down the field with that athletic ability and that length. Can get physical at the line of scrimmage, can disrupt the release and reroute tight ends off the snap. Again, Hunter Long was a guy that he was all over in that BC game. Good awareness in zone coverage. You see this kid dropping back in coverage and being able to read the quarterback in the pocket and range over. He did it to Trevor Lawrence in the end zone versus Clemson. He kind of deked Lawrence to think his guy was the opposite guy was getting open, and he ended up coming off his man and going over and showing good coverage range and be able to pick off a Lawrence pass in the end zone. So, that type of thing is kind of when he does that at that size, again, that surprises me. Ball skills, solid ball skills, possesses what I call receiver hands. Can reel in those tip balls, can go up and pluck it out of the air. It has 17 pass defense and 6 career interceptions. This is a guy that's probably going to come in and initially make the team on special teams. He's got over 739 snaps in his career on special teams, 17 tackles on teams. So, definitely a guy that you need to have a plan for, right? He's not going to be a guy's going to, definitely be a coverage safety, but he's going to give you something in coverage, or he's not going to be just a liability like we talked about earlier, just a 2-down run defender. He's going to be a guy that's give you some in safety, some coverage help in safety, but also be a physical presence at or near the line of scrimmage. And I think, again, when we're looking for a complement to Eddie Jackson, this guy fits the bill. And again, 6'3", 226. The kid's a monster with 33-inch arms. I absolutely love this kid.
Yeah, this kid amps me up, man. I have him number 4 on my list because of his ceiling, because of his potential, because of what he could be. And again, like when I'm looking at this entire list, not that Divine Diablo is a single high guy, but I'm looking at guys that could replace one or either of these two safeties that we have, because I'm not sure both of these guys are going to be here for the long haul. So I'm looking at guys that down the road can be dudes at either position. So I got a little bit of a mix of guys on my list, guys that could project better to free, guys that could project better strong, guys that could play both positions. But Divine, I mean. You got a guy here that has a translation of God and the devil in his name, and he plays like both, right? This kid's unbelievable. 51 games of experience in his career, so he's got a lot of tread wear on the tires. Team captain guy, so he's got the leadership, he's got the mental makeup to be a guy back there that can run the show. Just absolutely love this guy's size and athleticism combo. The testing number is unbelievable. With 6'3" and a half, 226, 4.42, 34 vert, 10.6 broad, 19 reps on the bench. Again, I talk about strong dudes back there that can light people up. He's that dude, man. Yep. He's obviously with this guy being being this big, he'll be a little bit tighter hip than a lot of the rest of the group that we'll talk about, as evidenced by the short shell and the 3-cone they threw up, which was a 4.4 flat and a 7.12, which aren't great, but still pretty solid for a guy at 6'3.5", 226.
Right.
Very unique athlete. I wouldn't be surprised if he was also running linebacker drills at times at Virginia Tech. The way that he comes downhill, navigates traffic, moves his feet, stays lateral and square in the hole, and shoots through the hole is pretty. The way he strikes guys, for a lot of smaller wide receivers and running backs, running into him is like running into a brick wall. Yeah. I felt he was smooth in space. He floats well in the back, easy to diagnose, and fires off when he triggers. Pretty well. I think that the first highlight that Aldo had played on the screen there was a pretty good example of him seeing what he sees, triggering, making a big play, got that pick. So shows some nice ball hawk tendencies. The blend of physicality and coverage ability can bring a ton of versatility to the room. Could see this guy functioning as a linebacker situationally as well. Right. And having the ability to have a safety that can move down to the second level without changing personnel, super valuable. Right. So he'll also be expectedly be super valuable as well in specs, like you said, with that size and AA combo. But unique player, massive ceiling, incredible potential. This guy excites me.
Right, like we talked about, a lot of times now defenses are in their nickel packages, about 60, between 65 70% of the time. And a lot of times in those nickel packages, it's usually two linebackers, with Roquan Smith, Danny Trevathan. Imagine Roquan Smith and this guy playing a linebacker for you in those nickel situations, right? A guy that's got linebacker size with that type of athletic ability. So, that'd be a nice way to utilize him too, if you get able to get this guy, on day 3 of the draft.
100%. I have him potentially even sneaking up into late day 2, but definitely early day 3. If he's around past round 4 or 5, I'd be really surprised. So that was your number 5.
That was my number 5. Yeah.
Right. So my number 5 is actually the guy that Aldo can't pronounce, Hamza Nasruddin. So Hamza from Florida State, another just uniquely gifted kid with his measurables, his length, his size, what he tested at. Came in at 6'3 and a quarter, 215 at pro day in Mobile, measured with 10-inch hands, 34 and a quarter arms, 82 and 3/4 wingspan, which is absolutely absurd.
I've never seen 34-inch arms on a safety. Have you?
No, not at all. Not that I know of, not that I can recollect just off the cusp, right?
Yeah.
And even that wingspan is absolutely freaking absurd.
Right.
But it didn't run the 40 at his pro day because he's still kind of dealing with the ACL issue from late 2019, I suppose. But did do some other drills. He had a 4.31 shuttle, 7.05 cone, 32 on the vert, moderately explosive in terms of that, 17 on the bench, pretty solid. Over the course of his 3 seasons worth of career, 233 tackles, 4 picks, 17 PBUs. The ACL in late 2019 is what kept him out until this November, which was really odd how long it took him to recover from that. They say he's estimated in the 4.5s. We just haven't seen that. But super unique prospect, a combination of size, length, athletic fluidity, the role flexibility, range, instincts, along with his relative rawness, really honestly make him a very appealing take to me. There's certain things he can do better, like play with greater urge, tighten up with his coverage ability. Outside of that, there's a lot to like. He's very smooth in space. He asserts his physicality, transitions smoothly for his frame and his length, has short area quickness. He changes direction very well, has intriguing closing burst. There's a lot of natural fluid athletic ability to him. Generally takes good angles to ball carriers and accelerates into them. I talk about guys, tackling well, having physicality, bringing some wood, when they show up to the ball carrier. He shows good tackling instincts. I think he could be a developmental late day 2 talent, early day 3 talent, a guy that makes, defensive coordinators salivate. Creative play caller can use this guy in several different ways. To me, this is completely an upside pick.
Yeah, and this is a guy that I was high on coming into last season off his 2018 tape. And, the team coming up in 2018 led the team with 91 tackles. Again, the size, the 6'3", 215, that we talked about, the 34+ inch arm. Like, you just don't see that in these types of safeties and his ability to move. He's athletic. The kid was a 4-year starter on the basketball team in high school. He played receiver and safety in high school as well. So this is a well-rounded athlete. You talk about some of the things that I liked about him, right? The size, the length, smooth in his back pedal, shows a solid transition to be able to come downhill. When he diagnoses and he reads blockers, this guy takes a beeline to the ball carrier and arrives with a big thump. When he squares and he sees what he's hitting, this guy can secure and wrap up those tackles and bring him down. But for me, it was just maddening watching his tape. First of all, he's high cut and leggy, right? So it's not his problem. He's 6'3", 215. Change of direction in the open field for me was a struggle at times, right? It just didn't look like it. And then I'm like, is he struggling or is he just not giving effort? And that's something that I kept going back and watching him over and over again. Obviously, I think he needs to add more weight to his frame, get a little bit stronger at the point of contact. He can get stuck on blocks, right? This is a guy that's got those 34-inch arm. He shouldn't be stuck on blocks. He should be able to press, stack, and shed and get these guys off of him. But a lot of times you just see him just stuck on these lineman blocks, and this can't just get off of them. In terms of awareness and attentiveness and coverage, to me that's lacking at times. Now that's something that could probably be coached up with him. His recovery speed was not there, at least on tape. If he got beaten off the line of scrimmage, I didn't see him get back there in coverage and get back in phase with whether it's a receiver or a tight end in coverage. So, there's a lot of things that you can be coached up. And I think you mentioned him being a nice developmental type of prospect. And I agree with that because, you draft him based on his traits, the size, the speed, the length, and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you coach him up and then you make him into a defensive weapon. And I think that's where he is. So that's why, for me, after watching, I think I watched like 6 of his games. Finally, I got a feel for how you could utilize this guy and how you could project him at the next level. So it's, again, with this kid, it's going to be fit. Where does he go? Does he have a defensive coordinator, or does he have a linebackers coach or a defensive back coach that's going to be able to go ahead and coach him up and put him in a position to succeed? So I think that's going to be key with this kid. But, initially, obviously, just like some of the other guys we're talking about, is going to be in special teams. That's where he's going to make his mark. And then eventually, like I said, get coached up, utilize those traits, those God-given talents, and make him into a defensive weapon. And a 6'3", 215, safety with 34-inch arms, you don't see those, growing on trees every day. So I think this is a guy that's developmental and has a chance, if put in the right situation, to be one hell of a, defensive weapon. So that's why, for me, he's a little lower on my list. He's 8th overall for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, the kid's just raw to me.
Right.
I think I've read. I mean, he hasn't really played a whole lot of, not just football, but the safety position throughout the course of his life. So, I mean, to me, like I said, it's an upside pick. You're drafting on traits with this kid. And really, like in terms of uniquity, I mean, some seriously unique traits, like you said. Like, yeah, how often do you see a kid with these long of an arms, this big of a wingspan? I mean, it's kind of freaky. So
yeah, if you can get him bigger, get him stronger, get him coached up, and be a even better, athlete at the line of scrimmage, in terms of being a better tackler, being able to diagnose and being able to post snap right away, react and see what you got and react at it. I think you're gonna have hell of an athlete and a hell of a defensive weapon. So we'll see where it goes. But in terms of the Bears, I think this guy's gonna be going, because of those traits, probably in a 4th round area is my guess. So I think that's gonna be a little bit too rich for the Bears to go out and get a safety, especially with some of the other needs they have. particularly on defense and some of the stuff they have in offense. So we'll see where this kid ends up going. But number 6 on my list is another kid that we saw at Mobile, and I fell in love with him there, and then I just continue watching him, and I think he's got a nice potential at safety, and that's Damar Hamlin from Pitt. There's another one that signed as a cornerback out of high school. He was a 4-star recruit, chose Pitt over schools like Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Penn State. So he's a highly recruited kid, a 3-year starter with plenty of game experience, right? He's got 40 starts under his belt, converted to safety in 2017, and then in 2018 led the team in tackles and interceptions. This past season was a second team All-ACC. Was a team captain. With him, I like his size. Again, 6'1", 200 plus pounds. He's got the quick feet, the lateral agility, the stop and go athleticism of a cornerback. Smooth in his back paddle with easy hip action to be able to open, turn, run with the receiver downfield. Has the speed and fluidity to cover and keep pace with slot receivers and tight ends. Size, length, and jumping ability. He's got a 35-inch vertical, allow him to compete and contest catches downfield. Show solid range off the hashes to be able to line up in the single high formation and offer some of that over-the-top support we talked about some of the other guys not giving. Good hands to intercept and play the football. 27 pass defense, 6 interceptions in his career. In terms of his run defense, this guy drops downhill with urgency, runs the alley, and does not shy away from contact. He's a solid open field tackler. With Hamlin, some of the things that kind of bother me a little bit. He's not a real quick, twitchy athlete, right? The change of direction again in the open field is not seamless. Now, I like seeing my safeties who can sink those hips, redirect, and get after, depending on which position the ball carrier is going, change their direction as well. He doesn't have that kind of twitchiness, that kind of seamless redirection ability. Doesn't have elite speed or burst. I think his time numbers were 4.59, so he's like in the 4.6 range probably. So he doesn't have the that elite speed we talked about with some of the other guys. Play speed can be a tad bit off. Slow to react to what he sees. It's like he doesn't trust his eyes all the time. It's kind of like sits there and in 1 or 2 seconds delay could be a difference between a tackle for loss, or it could be a 10-15 yard gain by the ball carrier. So that's some things that he's going to have to probably get coached up on as well. Angles to the football aren't always sharp. I see him kind of rounding out his direction or his angles to the ball carrier. Obviously, then you give up ground. That gives the ball carrier more space to go ahead and get upfield with the football. So early career injuries are also something you have to kind of monitor here. 2016 and 2017. He's got a slight cornerback frame. So that kind of makes you concerned, with some of the injury history he's had in the past. Is that frame going to be able to hold up, playing safety at the next level? So those are some things you're just going to have to put in the back of your mind when you're kind of projecting this kid at the next level. But, if you want to bring him in as a nickel corner, a guy that can come in and cover your nickel back or cover your slot receivers, I think this guy has that potential. He showed that ability down in Mobile. I remember there was one-on-one rep that I won't forget, him and Kate Johnson, the kid from South Dakota State, one-on-one. He did a phenomenal job. And that's a quick twitch, short area burst, athlete in terms of Kate Johnson. He was step for step with him and made a hell of a play, turned back, located the football, and deflected it away. So, this kid has that type of cover ability. It's just a matter of, again, getting a little bit stronger and just monitoring some of those injuries and making sure he stays upright and healthy.
Yeah, you can easily see the fact that this kid was a former corner. You can easily see the former corner in this kid, the way he covers. So I actually thought it was beautiful. I'm 100% with you on the negatives. Possesses just average speed. He lacks the explosion. So I felt that while he was quick, he's still going to miss plays based on his athletic limitations. Overall, though, I felt he plays faster than he is due to his quickness, due to his efficiency. I felt he's a very efficient mover. Instincts and intelligence were high level. One of the things I loved about this kid is that he's another one of these guys that's a team captain. So he brings the intangibles, the leadership, the je ne sais quoi, so to speak. But the frame and the length, was is nice coming off the bus. On the field, good coverage ability, shows the fluid hips, the light feet, good ball skills, all the things you would see from a former corner. Great instincts, smart player. I thought he was able to read and react well. I thought his quickness was very solid. To me, and what makes him really good is that he doesn't overextend. He plays within himself, almost like he knows what his limitations are, and he just works around all of that, circumvents all of that to, be a good, productive player. He's a very reliable defender. And I actually felt like he took good angles to the ball. More often than not, he took it good angles to the ball carrier. And again, I go back to the whole tackling thing. Wraps up efficiently. He has a size, the adequate physicality. He uses his body well in coverage, supporting the run. And I really honestly think he's another guy that can play either position. He's also not helpless against blocks either. I felt he used his hands well. So I feel when you were talking about the homework assignment that Aldo left us with, this was my kid in terms of the homework assignment, finding like a really good early day 3 value, mid-round value, a guy that can come in and be productive immediately. I feel like this is what this kid is. I mean, obviously he's going to play a lot of special teams and he's going to be really good doing that. But I feel really confident about this kid just in terms of how consistently reliable he is. And to me, that makes him a very smart mid to late day 3 pick.
Yeah, initially when I saw him in Mobile, I didn't, I love the kid in terms of what he showed there, but I thought it might have been more of a duplicate to Eddie Jackson than more of a compliment. But when you dig into his tape, he talked about his ability to, to be comfortable in the box, be able to secure tackle. He's not going to be a physical thumper back there. He's going to be a guy that's going to,
right.
come down in a flat. And if there's a running back in a flat, he's going to go over there, he's going to wrap him up and bring him down. So that's what you really need here. So, a lot of times I'm caught looking at for another Adrian Amos, right? While Amos was solid in terms of, tackling, he wasn't great in terms of coverage. He might have got a little bit better now as he's with Green Bay. But this guy is Hamlin. That is, he gives you that coverage ability, but also gives you a solid, tackler as well.
Yeah, 100%. Are we at our number 7s now?
We're our number. It's always on number 6. So your number 6 is Richie Grant. We talked about him.
Richie Grant. Yep.
Yeah. So my number 7 is Jamar Johnson, and I was all over the board with this kid as well. A 3-star recruit out of high school. Played corner, safety, receiver. Was also a returner. Another one that was a 4-year letterman in track. Where he competed in hurdles, long jump, and triple jump. Another well-rounded athlete. But again, another 1-year starter. All right, just 9 games under his belt. Last year was his first year as a starter. 2020 led the team in pass defense with 8 and interceptions with 4. So he shows some ball skills there as well. For me, it's got good size. Athletic abilities. He has those quick feet, the stop and go quickness that we talked about with some of the other guys. Smooth, quick out of his transition, easy mover, loose hips. He can open, turn, run with the receiver. Good straight line athlete. Good closing burst. Fine eyes, instinct and anticipation and coverage. I felt like. Plays with urgency and fills fast, competitive run defender, effective blitzing off the edge, utilizing that size, speed, and closing burst. There was one play where against Ohio State where I believe it was a Master Teague. He just runs him over in pass blocking, and he blitz off the edge, runs Teague over, and then pressures Justin Fields to go and get rid of the football. Shows solid range and good burst out of his breaks, and can spy in the backfield and then transition quickly to play the football. Solid ball skills we talked about earlier. Led the team in pass defense and interceptions in only season as a starter. For me, this is a guy that appears comfortable as a single high safety. He's got the range, the recognition, and the ball skills to be an effective over-the-top helper. So, again, the 1-year starting experience kind of bothers me. I wanted to see more on tape with him, but you see on some of these highlights here, his ability to go in range and make plays on the football is what really attracted me to him. And going along with the size at 6 feet, 205, ran a 4.58 40. I think he plays in that range right now. So that looks to be accurate, but I had 1.62 10-yard split, which is what I like, and a 35-inch vertical. So it has some lower body explosiveness, only a 7.223 cone, which wasn't the greatest, but also isn't detrimental to him, I don't think, in terms of his tape at least. So, but he's a guy that I kind of went back and forth on. Like I said, I wanted more than just 1 year. But again, some of the things he showed to me, especially as a single high safety, that range, anticipation, ball skills, really attracted me to him.
Yeah, this is actually a guy I was completely on the opposite end of the spectrum from you. Now, I only went back and watched a couple games of him just because I had him further on down my list from the start, just crossing the T's and dotting the I's. To me, the best thing about this kid was that how strong he played. I thought, the 17 reps on the bench, that harkens to that. But ultimately, what I saw on the field was a guy that was athletically average, kind of physically mundane, sort of one of those guys that is sort of filed away under the category of safeties that can't tackle and have little in the way of redeeming traits. I was not blown away by Jamar Johnson whatsoever. I mean, if to me, if I was going to go ahead and take this kid, it was going to be like really late, if at all. I had some other guys that were more explosive, better athletes, maybe a little bit more high risk, high reward guys, ahead of him. But I can see the decent reliability of him, but at the same time, again, my big thing is, can you tackle? That's what became ultimately the starting question on a lot of these guys that I watch. You start off, can you tackle? And then you got the check boxes, yes or no. And if you hit check no, I pretty much just sort of like toss him aside, because I need guys. Eddie Jackson last year drove me up the damn wall with his inability to take guys down in open space. And Jamar Johnson was another one of those dudes that I think if you watch the Outback Bowl, missed 7 tackles in that game. So I can't write off on the guy. I need guys that can be reliable in space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw the missed tackles as well. So I think he wasn't horrible, but he wasn't great. Definitely something he needs to work on as well. So, like I said, 1 year I wish he stayed in school. I wish he was another year of.
He's a true junior, right?
I believe so. Yeah, he could have come back. Even if he wasn't, he still had that. With the COVID year, another year of eligibility. But yeah, just I wish he put more on tape. 9 games is not really enough to draw a nice conclusion. But I watched him against Ohio State. I think he's made some nice plays there against Justin Fields. So, in a couple other games I saw him where he was just, rangy and the size and the athletic ability and the ball skills. But yeah, in terms of tackling, he could clean that up as well and get better there too. So a lot of these guys, I think, could also, improve in terms of tackling too. So, but just the athletic ability, the size, the range has really, really caught my eye with him.
Yeah. The guy that I had 7 was Tyree Gillespie out of Missouri. And he's one of those guys I talked about that had a lot more to offer in the range of athleticism and explosive ability. And but also another one of these guys, high risk, high reward. Like, he drove me up the damn wall sometimes watching his games. But I mean, he's a guy, he's played a lot of football in his career. Last year had 46 tackles, 4 passes defensed. I don't think he had a pick. Over the course of his career, 146 tackles, 6.5 for loss, 2 sacks, and 12 passes defense. He had no picks in his career, which automatically threw up a massive red flag to me.
That's
but do I know?
That's why he's not on my list.
Right. But I mean,
the skills are non-existent. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the more I watched him though, he became like a really interesting, eval to me. He definitely has more of a narrow, longer frame than some of these other guys, right? And like he kind of has a little bit more of a cornerback build. Athletically much more fluid and quick than the guy he plays next against, the Bledsoe kid. Plays single high from Missouri, will come down into the box on blitz assignments, given a lane, he'll accelerate aggressively to the quarterback or to whatever his radar is locked on. He's a heat-seeking missile to me. He's not going to shy away from Langston Goodwood either. To me, diagnosis from a single high spot, flies to the ball full speed, floats very well, has great range with his speed and bursts, and it floats well laterally as well. Will put his nose in there at any chance he gets. Not afraid to be physical whatsoever. Will hit the ball carry full speed. Negatively, open field tackling. Drove me nuts, right? He has a tendency of taking bad angles, has a tendency of not breaking down when he should. And the way he attacks the ball carrier when he goes full speed, it causes him to miss frequently. And he's also one of these guys that uses that high school hairy shoulder throw. Drives me crazy. But, he flashes a ton of great things to me and will still need to develop, once reaching the next level. But again, the lack of picks, bothered me. The lack of tackling bothered me. But I saw a dude that went out there and just went balls to the wall, made plays on ball carriers, made plays on balls when he was able to. I think he's got to clean a lot of things up. But I think he's a really solid day 3 pick as a guy that, at the very least, with his athletic ability, his explosion, all these types of things. He was one of these guys that ran like sub 4.4 at his pro day. He's 4.38,
right? And
you could see that on film, 100%. So
I was going to ask you about that because Missouri numbers were kind of how am I raising my eyebrows a little bit? I'm like, really 4.42? I'm like, I see him in a 4.5 range, but I don't see him as a 4.42 guy. But I agree in terms of he brings that physicality from that safety position, or runs the alley. We'll not back down from anybody. We'll come in and lay some wood on running backs and all that stuff. But we've got that good size speed ratio. We talked about physicality. A 3-year starter, so in the SEC, which counts as something there. but the awareness was not there for me in coverage. Both him and his teammate Bledsoe, I just didn't like their awareness in coverage at all. Bledsoe is even less athletic in my opinion in terms of some of that, even more stiffness at the second level, change of direction, a hard time redirecting and all that stuff. But inconsistent eyes with Gillespie. Anticipation wasn't there, and that's probably why he doesn't have interceptions or a lot of passes broken up. So, if you're a safety and you don't have interceptions, that to me, like you're talking about the boxes with the can you tackle, can you not tackle? If you cannot pick up the ball, you have no interception, you show no ball skills. I don't want you as my safety. So that's one of the things with me. But yeah, I mean, in terms of physicality, all with you there 100% there. This guy will come down and will knock some heads off though. But we talked about earlier, you want a guy that's going to be just a 2-down, run defender. You're going to be a guy that's going to be able to get back there and give you some coverage ability. So I just didn't see that with him or his teammates. That's why he's not on my list.
Yeah, Bledsoe's pretty far down my list, but Gillespie, I actually had him further on down. I think I had him actually off my list at first, but that was before I found all 22 film of him, and that's when I shot him back up, and he became a number 7 guy. And the only reason why he's number 7 is because he does have the athletic and explosive advantage over Damar Hamlin. I actually love Damar Hamlin. I honestly, he probably should be a little bit higher on my list, to be honest with you. But like I said,
Hamlin gives you more. Like for Gillespie cannot come down and cover the slot. Hamlin can do that, but Gillespie gives you more of physicality in terms of as a run defender, while Hamlin is a more secure tackler. So that's like give and take. That's why for me, Hamlin was too much more up there. Yep. Exactly. So I guess all right. So now that was your number 8. We already talked about Hamlin.
That was my 7.
It was number 7. Okay. So all right. So my 7 we talked about Jamar Johnson. My number 8 was Hamza. We talked about them. We talked about Damar Hamlin. So my number 9 is Sean Davis, and this is a kid from Florida, a 3-star high school recruit out of Florida. Picked the Gators over schools like Alabama, LSU, and USC. A 2-year starter with 16 games under his belt. 31 plus inch arm length at 1.59 10-yard split, almost 40-inch vertical, almost broad jumped almost 11 feet. So he's got that lower body explosiveness. This is a compact, powerful frame with some twitchiness to it. That's what this kid has. Possesses the cornerback feet, with the lateral agility, the hips to be able to redirect in the open field. Talk about some of that explosive lower body ability. Instinctive and quick to trigger. Ultra competitive, plays with a tremendous energy and intensity. Can play the deep half and underneath zone. Utilizing that short area burst to be able to jump on anything thrown underneath him. Physical thumper in the run defense. I think if fans in Soldier Field would love this kid at safety. Looks to explode and destroy targets upon contact. Feels hard. Takes good angles to the football. Solid ball skills. Had 5 interceptions in his last 2 seasons to go along with 15 passes defense in his career. Obviously, when you look at some of his limitations, size is one of them. Right, undersized. Question have to be asked. About his ability to stay healthy. And hold up physically. He's a guy that missed 10 games within the last 3 seasons for Florida. So that's a big red flag, there you have to investigate and look into. But also a guy that can be run at, right? This is the guy, if big blockers get on him, he has a hard time disengaging and getting free. So that's something that he's going to have to get better at as well. And it can be a liability in coverage, especially versus bigger body tight ends and those, bigger, body receivers downfield because of his size limitations. But if you just put him in, you talk about a guy that gives you some coverage ability, a guy that's going to be a thumper, is going to come down and just be instinctive downhill and try and destroy anything in his path. I think this guy is a chance as probably like a 6th round pick. You can bring him in, and you definitely will be a demon on special teams, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But I just love the aspect of his game, the physicality and the energy, and like I said, instinctiveness. So I just put him on my list for that because I think he's got to be a nice find in the late day 3.
Yeah, I had him. Let's see, 7th round is where I had him. Much further on down my list, and I wasn't as far on the opposite end as you were, as I was with Jamar Johnson, I should say. But I do agree that he's going to be a fixture on special teams. That the best trait about him is his physicality. Not afraid to lay some wood. He's definitely a guy though that I wish he would definitely go for the tackle more than the high school Harry shoulder throw. Mm-hmm. I had a hard time finding clips of him actually trying to attempt a tackle, which drove me crazy. we talked about the lack of great size as a negative. He does have a bit of length though. Even though he's only like 5'10.5", I felt he did have like some interesting length in his arms, even though they only measure 31.48. Maybe that's optical illusion with his ensemble that he wears all over his limbs.
Wristbands.
Yeah, hey, look good, play good, right? But athletically, I felt when it came to laterally side to side agility movements, he was just kind of marginal. At times, he really bothered me with his instincts. So I really docked him for a few things that I saw, and went back and watched him earlier today, and I couldn't feel good about putting him higher up my list. But I do love the physicality of this dude though. He definitely looks to hurt people, which is awesome. Yeah. I'm concerned about the injury stuff. Concerned about the lateral agility. Concerned about the size. I did see him get washed out. On blocks and the inability to disengage and all those types of things. But an interesting kid. I just wasn't as fired up on him as you were apparently.
So next guy, I believe who's your number 9?
My number 9
Darius Washington.
Darius Washington. Speaking of guys that are small.
Yep.
But so I remember this kid in high school, and he was exactly what you see on tape, almost to a greater extent. He just played all over the field, like a Tasmanian devil type of kid. Super, athletic, super versatile. Played both sides of the ball. It was really fun to watch. But again, we looked at it. We got him in camp. We looked at it. Yeah, he's 5'7", right? So he ends up. I think he was going to LSU. He ended up signing with TCU late. He's from Shreveport, Louisiana. And he's another one of these kids that's young. I don't know if he should have stayed another year, but he's a redshirt sophomore. He had a lot more eligibility in the tank for him to go ahead and show some further skills. But impressed by what this kid did in pro day in terms of agility and explosion. 4.1 on the shuttle, 7.06 on the cone, 37.5 vertical and a 10.7 broad, 17 reps on the bench for a kid that's 5'7", 178 was really impressive. And then this is a kid that I'm not saying is like a guy you stick up at safety and just let him go. I think that this is a guy that you can move around a little bit. He's a guy that could be a nickel covering the slot. He could be a move guy. He's an interesting kind of like chess piece sort of kid. Right. But 2-year starter at TCU, 2019 freshman All-American. He's a prospect with great intrigue. Obvious shortcomings with his size. No pun intended whatsoever. Right. And even his 40 time leaves a lot to be desired with the 4.61 at that size. But like his explosion numbers, like I said, they show on tape, which really helps him competitively. From the free safety spot, he shows great range when challenged, exhibits ball skills and instincts. Plays like his hair is on fire, just like he did in high school on college tape, especially when attacking the ball carrier. Where he can close and finish with great play strength as well for his size. Able to stop the guy at the point, get a guy in the ground. Again, I sort of like keep on conditionalizing this. For his size, he is. But he again, like for a kid that's 5'7.5", 178 pounds, that's really freaking impressive, right? He's let's see where I leave off here. He wraps up well when tackling, brings a lot of physicality, plays bigger than his size dictates. Which will be the trait that everyone will need to overcome is his biggest question. Obviously, with the way he plays football, you could expect him to excel in special teams, if not a viable option in the secondary. The tricky thing to me, the dangerous thing to me is that they compare him a ton to the Tyrann Mathieu kid. Right. Which, again, like as dynamic as Tyrann Mathieu is, if this kid goes in, to wherever he goes and he doesn't end up being Tyrann Mathieu, his career is over essentially. Right. So that's kind of bothersome. He's gotten way too many comparisons to that kid. I don't think he's that kid. I think he's going to be his own monster. Like maybe he's like a Bob Sanders or something like that. But he's going to be a high value day 3 guy to me that will either be a massive steal or I think at worst a solid roster depth guy that's going to be just another one of these special team demons dudes.
Yeah, I thought about Washington, and obviously that the size was something I can't see a 5'7" safety, right? But what I thought about him though is remember we were looking at cornerbacks, and you and I had a brief discussion about Elijah Molden from Washington, and everybody's talking about him being a safety / nickel corner. I can see this kid better in a better that role better than an Elijah Molden, a guy that can come in and 100%. Cover the slot, be a nickel, slot guy. a guy that can come in and cover that slot receiver on those, nickel situations. And I think he can carve out a role for himself that way, because the kid is quick. Kid's instinctive. You see on some of the highlights, he's always around the football. He always gets his hands on the ball. So I love that aspect about him, right? I love the twitchiness to him. He's got, obviously that the size is going to be a detriment, right? I saw the one play where a guard came pull and just blew him like 2-3 yards down the football field. So, that's going to be an issue with him, right? He's got to keep him clean. But again, if you give him that niche, you give him a role on defense, and it could be a third down nickel guy like we talked about, I think that's where this kid can excel. Obviously, all these smaller statured safeties are being compared to a Tyrann Mathieu. I mean, there's only one Honey Badger. I think that's going to be harder to replicate. A kid with that size, that type of determination, that kind of play strength, and that type of heart that Mathieu has, it's going to be hard to find another one like that. However, these guys like Molden and Washington more so are guys that can carve a niche on defense and play a specific role, probably in like the dime packages or nickel packages. So, but in terms of bringing a guy in and being a starting safety at 5'7", I just couldn't see it. So that's why I left him off my list. But I do like him in a certain role, but I just don't like him as a starting safety.
Right, and that's what I was thinking when I was going through this, is that we are still looking for that guy to really nail down the nickel spot. And, we're getting to the point in my list where it really just becomes a crapshoot as far as guys we're going through. I suppose like the next three guys I have after Rodarius could, go above him. But in terms of the kind of value that he could bring to a position that we're still weak at, I thought he'd be worth talking about. So that's where I'm at on that.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. Like I said, if you get a nice role for the kid, you know how to use him. I think he's got a place in the NFL, no doubt, for sure.
Absolutely.
My last guy on my list is Richard LeCounte from Georgia, and I really went back and forth with him. His numbers, his athletic numbers, testing numbers caught me off guard, to be honest with you, because I didn't think he ran a 4.76 40. I had a 1.69 10-yard split, which isn't great, but it's not horrible either. 32.5 vertical, 7.443 cone, which really kind of surprised me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The kids in high school was a 3-sport star. He played football, basketball, and then he ran track. Played safety, receiver, and quarterback in high school. He was a 5-star recruit at Georgia. He picked Georgia over Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson. So this is a highly touted kid, highly recruited kid. 3-year starter, 33 starts under his belt. Led the team in tackles in 2018 and interceptions in 2019. Another one, team captain. I know you like those guys.
Mm-hmm.
For me, this guy just an instinctive, experienced 3-year starter in the SEC conference. I think that just means a lot in terms of the type of competition he's been going against and the type of plays he's been making over the past 3 seasons. Anticipates nicely from the back end, making subtle, pre-snap adjustments and diagnosing plays. Steps downhill quickly and aggressively, despite the lack of size. He's only 5'10", 196, showing that competitive toughness in him. Displays a very good, football playing demeanor, very confident, very, opportunistic player. Outstanding ball skills, 18 pass defense, 8 interceptions in his career. And, for me, this is a guy that just, every time Georgia's in a big game, national spotlight or whatnot, he's a guy that just played big in those big games and just made clutch plays. And I know athletically he doesn't fit the profile, if you will, in terms of what you want and, in terms of speed and times and all that stuff, but instinctive guy, always makes plays. He's always around the football. So that's why I just feel like this guy is maybe one of those guys that, intellectually might overcome some of the physical limitations he has in terms of foot speed and overall athletic ability. So I think I just have to give this guy a chance because, like I said, I saw him 3 years just making plays continuously at Georgia and in the SEC conference, a conference that I think, has some of the best football in all college football as well. So that's why I give this guy a chance. I put him 10th on my list.
Interesting player for sure. I went back and forth on him as well. Tons of experience, 44 games played, 33 starts. Again, I love the team captain stuff. I love the leadership stuff. The thing that I think drove me crazy about him is that for a guy that's supposed to have leadership and, make good decisions, an hour after they get back from an away game, he gets in a motorcycle wreck on Halloween night on a dirt bike with no lights, unregistered, no motorcycle license, hit 2 cars and ran himself unconscious in the middle of the road. Not sure what the hell that was all about. And I'm not sure that that's something that's looked upon very favorably, amongst the scouting community. and it's certainly something that's going to have him answering a bunch of questions during all these interview processes. But even still, I mean, we're talking about a guy that, even though he's got his limitations, the average size and the length and the marginal speed and athletic ability, he really only plays one speed. Despite these, he plays to his strengths, kind of like DeMar, produces well at the college level, is very instinctive, can read the offense well, plays bigger than he is most of the time, and competitive, high energy, motor, goes hard in the paint, man. He brings the wood. Very consistent, reliable player on the field. His limitations are disadvantageous, taking on blocks, hanging in there with bigger, faster, more athletic and explosive, wide receivers and tight ends. But, again, the instincts, the consistency, the playing nature, he'll provide a roster depth and value, somewhere, even if it's just on special teams.
Right.
It's just, how will the motorcycle incident muddy up this kid's evaluation? Because you're talking about a kid that should otherwise have like a pretty squeaky clean thing, but all of a sudden, senior year, team captain, post game, goes out after dark on a bike with no lights that wasn't registered, and he doesn't have a license, and wrecks it into one car and damn near kills himself. So that kind of like, that red flagged the hell out of him for me. It really, concerned me in terms of his decision-making ability off the field. But I mean, outside of that, like in a vacuum, if you just put that in a vacuum, compartmentalize that and go back to everything else, I like the kid. He probably would have been, one of the last, one or two guys on my list. But again, I think, you couple that along with just the marginal, athleticism and mobility and all those types of things. It's hard to put him on the list for me. But he's very shortly thereafter. He was one of the next few guys, after I had my last guy.
Yeah, with the thing with the motorcycle, that was a little out of character for him. But from all I can gather, that was the only incident really off the field with him. That other than that, he's been squeaky clean in terms of character and all that stuff. So yeah, it's a college kid making a dumb mistake. I mean, I'm sure maybe we'll see how that goes. I don't think it's going to hurt him that much. However, my thing with him is that lack of foot quickness really kind of bothered me initially. But then how many times have we seen these players that are smart, instinctive, that can diagnose pre-snap and then post-snap, kind of know what the play is, utilize their brains to be able to, overcome, like I said earlier, their physical and athletic limitations. So I think this is going to be a guy that I would give a chance and see if he can be one of those players that could end up, being one of those players that overcome some of his, physical limitations because of how smart he is and instinctive he is at the position. So I'm curious to see how that turns out for him, in the upcoming years or whatnot.
Yeah, 100%. I'm really interested to watch this kid's career unfold, to see what really he turns out, what he turns out to being. Now, my last kid I had was James Wiggins from Cincinnati.
Yep.
Another kid I was, greatly back and forth with. This kid's bizarre to me. If you go back to his previous tape, he had a ACL in 2019, so he missed all of 2019 with the injury. Back in 2018, kid has some pretty impressive tape. The pre-ACL stuff was there was a lot of wow plays on that stuff there. Doesn't have the greatest length numbers. He only measured 29 in his arms. He's 5'11", 209. But, he has a 4.440. He's got 38 vert, 10.7 broad, 22 reps on the bench. So he's strong and explosive and physical. That's what this kid's MO is. 2-year starter. Like I say, he missed 2019. So he started 18 and 20. First team all AAC kid. Solidly built dude, without great length, like I said, but explosive traits. They have to do some work for him sometimes, but they do a ton of heavy lifting, but I mean the kind of production that he reaps from the way that he plays football is it's fun to watch. He reads the ball well. He shows up plus ball skills, shows a knack for the hard hit, does tackle well. He's physical in your wraps. Does need to be more consistent as a finisher in that sense, but he does show it on tape. At least he shows that he's willing to go ahead and tackle somebody. Flashes explosion and burst. Has returner experience, adding to his special teams value. The negatives, I felt that he was a little bit too tight in the hips for me to just absolutely love him. Yeah. He's more passive than aggressive as a player in the grand scheme of things. Definitely more explosive in 2018 than he was in 2020. So my question was, how much has that ACL affected him? Right? Is he passive just because he's scared about the ACL? Is he less agile or less laterally explosive or whatever because of the ACL, or is he just sort of still getting over the mental hurdle of the ACL? I had a hard time dissecting that when I was watching this kid. And then he was also knocked out for a couple games this past season with an arm. And I actually watched it happen. I was in the Houston game. He came downhill, hit that tailback they have at Houston, and didn't come back the rest of the game. So this kid has intriguing, explosive tendencies and traits. But the injury durability concerns, concern me. The odd athletic limitations concern me. It made him a really curious prospect. But again, we're talking about guys that are mid-late third round at this point. I wouldn't be opposed to taking a flyer on a tightly wound, juiced up dude that may just need to get over some hurdles in order to get back to the point where he could have been maybe a day 2 guy.
Right. With me, like you said, it's just a tightly wound guy athlete. I think this is a guy, first of all, that the size of 5'11" at 29-inch arms, that's a little off. It threw me off a little bit. I didn't expect that to see that. The other numbers, 4'1", 40, 153, 10-yard split, 38-inch vertical. The kid's an athlete, right? But he's more of a straight line athlete for me. He's a guy that I think struggles asking him to change directions. Again, I think he's more of a tightly wound kid. We talked about some of the injury concerns he had in the past. That concerned me as well. And I think these tightly wound kids are like, you get the calf muscle injuries, you get the pulled hamstrings, you get the lower abdomen issues and all this stuff. So those are things that kind of concern me with him. But he's got some potential, right? He's we average 20.9 yards per return in terms of a kickoff return. So he gives you something on special teams as well. If you're talking about a day 3 guy, the Bears I believe have, if I'm not mistaken, 3 6th-round picks. If you bring a guy like this and give you something on special teams,
4 for sure.
4 possibly. I gotta take a look at the chart.
204, 208, 221, and 228 in the 6th round. Yeah.
You take a flyer on something like this. The guy who's who's an athlete, he'll give you something on special teams. That's something you could take a flyer on. But overall, I just with that type of body build and if it's tightly wound, he's always going to be ending up having these type of core injuries. So that's concerning me. That's the reason why I left him off the list. But look, DK Metcalf was the same way in terms of college. He was always a tightly wound kid, but Seattle's done a great job in terms of getting him to be, more flexible, and he's been, been consistently available for them, since he was drafted into the league. So maybe it's same thing will happen with this kid. Bring him into a team where they can kind of work on his body and take some of that muscle structure, make him a little more, flexible. And then get rid of some of those, little minor aches and pains that he deals with. So, but yeah, the ACL injury did kind of hamper him, I think, last year as well.
You guys have done a sensational job of taking a look at the safety class. And you know what? I think there's a lot of guys there that are good day 3 guys to consider developmental picks or even undrafted free agents. I bet, a couple of names on your list are probably going to be undrafted guys and who could potentially end up with the Chicago Bears. That's that whole other part of the draft week that we love. And we're going to talk about next Sunday is not only the guys that the Bears have drafted, but we'll take a look at some of the undrafted free agents and try to collect as much information on those guys as possible and share it with you. So when we come back from this commercial break, we're going to talk a little bit about what the rest of the week looks like. We're going to answer any questions that might be in the chat room and just get some final thoughts from Danny and Niel. So we'll be right back right after this. We are back, and I want to let everyone know that this is the week that we've all been waiting for. As you know, Draft on Tap has been focused on scouting all of these players, and then tomorrow, Danny and Neil are going to present their big board, their board of top. What are we going to do? 150 guys or so? Is that what this is going to look like?
Was it top 100? I thought
first
okay. 3 rounds.
That's what I thought too. Top 100 guys. So we'll present that. There'll be some pounding on the table. There'll be some, no, got to get this guy off the list. No, you got to put this guy on the list. So that's going to be a really interesting 120-minute show tomorrow, Tuesday, starting at 8 p.m. Central right here on the Barroom Network. And then Wednesday, we have got the mock draft. And I am really looking forward to this because I'm the general manager, so I'm the one that's going to be deciding who are we going to pick in the first round, second round, third round. Are we going to make a trade? And we're also going to discuss with the guys other issues or other topics, like who are the guys that you think are really guys you should not touch in this draft. We'll get that from the guys, untouchables, so to speak. And we'll talk about guys who, if they fall to you in the first round and you haven't picked a quarterback, then you really have to select. So we'll have some quiz type questions for the guys. And then on Thursday, we have our first round coverage starting at 7 p.m. Central. John Buffon will be anchoring it, and Niel Stopczynski and Danny Shimon will be the analysts. And so they'll be talking about every single pick made in the draft, and that's going to be everything from a Bears perspective. So it's going to be an interesting coverage of the first round. And then the following day, we'll do a review after the day 2 picks are in. We'll talk a little bit about what the second and third round looked like. And then on Saturday, John Buffon will anchor another 60-minute show with some special guests to discuss the draft overall. But it's on Sunday when Danny and Neil come back here with one of the last Draft on Taps of the year, and they will give thorough evaluations of all of the players that the Bears have drafted, and like I said earlier, some of the undrafted free agents. So, guys, are you psyched up? Are you well caffeinated for the busiest week of your life?
Oh yeah, sleep is overrated this week. We cannot go to sleep. We got to watch more tape. Got to drink your caffeine and all that stuff. So you got to be up and going. But this is my Christmas. This is what I wait for. So I do all the tape studying, and I just get to this day, and I can't wait till Thursday to see what happens. Especially because I tell you, I have this feeling something big's going to happen. So we'll see. You'll see if I'm right or not.
And I hope you're right, brother. I hope you're right. I hope we're not picking at 20. I hope we're picking up in the top 5, 6, whatever it is. And
8,
sounds
8
like
is a spot for me. 8 is a spot that I keep.
Top 8, you think?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I don't know. Rap put out that tweet the other day. I don't know if it was yesterday. I don't know what day it is right now. So I don't know if it was yesterday or Thursday. But he talked about how like the chances are of Mac Jones and Trey Lance going before Justin Fields. Justin Fields is slipping because of this epilepsy thing, which I think that's hogwash. If we end up going ahead and finding an opportunity to take Justin Fields, I'm 100% pounding on my table for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's curious to see what happens now because, initial scuttlebutt, whenever that trade with the 49ers was made with Miami to go up there and get the number 3 pick, my first inclination is they're going to go get Trey Lance. Mm-hmm. But then all the Mac Jones rumors came out and everyone's like, Mac Jones. Now, all of a sudden today you hear like, oh, so now it's between Mac Jones and Trey Lance. So I'm curious if they go Trey Lance at number 3. I think Atlanta goes with the tight end at 4 with Kyle Pitts. I think then Cincinnati goes with Jamar Chase at number 5. Miami's going to go, Devontae Smith or some other pass Waddle at 6, I believe. 7, Detroit. That's somewhere where a team that wants to jump ahead. Like maybe Denver, maybe the Patriots, and any quarterback needy team could target Detroit because I don't think they're going to trade within the division with the Bears. So I think 8 is the more realistic pick here. Now, of course, if you want to be Ryan Pace and just go get your guy, whether it's Justin Fields or whoever one of these quarterbacks is, 4 is a spot. Atlanta's willing to trade out, but Atlanta wants a lot of stuff, and I just don't think he's going to have the okay from the organization to go ahead and mortgage, a lot of that future to go ahead and get that number 4 pick. So I think 8 is a spot to keep an eye on.
Let me get to that in just a second. Let's answer Alex's question. He says he had a dream that the Bears took Landon Dickerson at number 20. How do you guys feel about that pick?
I love Leonard Dickerson, the player. And you talk about this guy's going to be a captain. He's going to be a leader of the offensive line. The guy's versatile, can play center, can play guard. My only question with him, first of all, I don't think the Bears need an interior offensive lineman right now. I think they have, that's the area of the offensive line that they have, good depth at, right? The other thing with Dickerson is his medical red flags are all over the place. I mean, he had, multiple ACLs at Florida State, and I had another one at Alabama last year. So, for me, you could see this kid, hell of a football player, hell of a character. Could see him probably drop, and one of the reasons why he's going to drop is because of those medical red flags.
I love the kid as a player. Like, I hate the fact that he has red flags, because I would love to have that kid on this team.
Right.
We may not need him on the interior line, but if they want to go ahead and say, like, this is our center for years on end for the next decade, shoot the bullet, man.
Not number 20 though, right?
Maybe not number 20, number 20, but
right.
That if they want to go ahead and take this kid at some point where it makes sense, maybe round 3, I think 83, pick 83 would make sense. I think for us possibly,
right?
Even though I feel like we have better, greater needs, positionally, I would still love to have this kid. I think that kid's a warrior.
If a kid like this with his versatility, same thing that we talked about with Cody Whitehair, a guy can play center, guy can play guard. Like I said, this guy's going to be a future, captain wherever team he goes to. Just the only thing is with him is do you trust that body to stay healthy? That's the only thing with him is again, love the player, love the prospect. Medical red flags, unfortunately, are something he's going to have to deal with. So, but if the Bears stay at 20, and we talked about our last show, we're looking at corner, possibly receiver. I think those are the areas. Maybe a linebacker like from Notre Dame, Jock, could be an option there as well. So that's what you're looking at. But I think if they say 20, I think the bet would be probably a defensive back, like a cornerback there.
I'm going to make Niel jealous tomorrow at 10 a.m. right here on the Barroom Network. I'm going to be talking to Nick Shepkowski, who covers Notre Dame football, and I'm going to get the lowdown from Nick about all of these Notre Dame prospects. And I'm a big Notre Dame fan too, have been since I was a wee little guy. And so we're going to talk some Notre Dame football for about 45 minutes here on the Barroom Network and get the latest on what he's been hearing about these prospects. Got an interesting question, speaking of Notre Dame, from Alex Sims. He says, would you guys be upset if the Bears drafted Ian Book in the 3rd round? Jim Nagy, the executive director of the Senior Bowl and our good buddy, says he doesn't think that Book makes it out of the 3rd round. What do you guys say?
I have a lot of quarterbacks ahead of Ian Book. Maybe not a lot. I have a handful of quarterbacks ahead of Ian Book. I think 3rd round is a little bit too rich for my blood, but he showed some nice things in his pro day now. He had the best season of his career, showed some nice things in his pro day, answered a lot of questions about arm strength and ability to zip the ball down the field, put it on a beeline, make the throws. I think his stock probably went up in a lot of different rooms, but I doubt it went all the way up to 3.
I would let some other team make that mistake. I would not want the Bears to make a mistake. If the Bears draft Ian Book in the 3rd round, I am getting up and walking off the stage. I'm leaving. I'm just going to leave. I'm letting you guys know right now. Neil and Aldo will take care of the show, and with John Buffone, I'm just going to walk off the stage.
Well, it is interesting how many people believe that Book is going to be chosen ahead of Danny's guy, Sam Ehlinger. I mean, I've seen Sam even go as an undrafted player in some mocks and some reports and stuff from people who you consider reputable sources. So it's amazing how his Ehlinger's stock has dropped.
I was going to forward you guys a link from Bob McGinn. Bob McGinn. It was a long-time writer. He's got all the connections, and he had an article with The Athletic. It said that breaking down all the quarterbacks, and they got to Ehlinger, and he said the scouts are saying gamer, love him. The only question is with his arm strength. And can he make all the throws? Can he drive the football? But that's the thing I was telling you guys is these coaches are going to get into a room with this kid, and they're going to fall in love with this kid. And if Ehlinger goes undrafted, I'm going to be floored to see him go undrafted. But I mean, I think just one team's going to go ahead, maybe 3rd round, maybe 4th round. But I think the team's going to go ahead and pull a trigger on them. And if you're the Bears, if you miss on these top 5 guys and you come back in the second round and you pick a quarterback in tier 2, Kyle Trask, right? Like I've said before, I would double dip, because Kyle Trask isn't a sure thing. You have 4 6th-round picks. If a guy like Ellinger, if a guy like Ian Book in the 6th round is sitting there, or Jamie Newman, a guy in the 6th round they can take a flyer on, go ahead and double dip and see what happens, because you don't have a sure thing with Kyle Trask. Maybe you get lucky in the 6th round with one of the other quarterbacks. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out on Thursday night.
We got Tony Salamansky in the chat room. He says, actually, earlier he says it's official. Mac Jones is going number 3. And then he adds, did you guys listen to the 49ers presser? Mike Shanahan was pretty defensive. I did not hear anything from the San Francisco camp about Mac Jones being a certainty to San Francisco. In fact, that there were reports today that the rumors are that the team is still battling between who to pick at number 3, that there's some people in the 49ers camp who want Mac Jones because he's ready. He's kind of of the quarterbacks who are likely to be available at number 3, he's the guy that's most ready to step in and help them win games because the Niners are in a win now mode. But there's other people who want either Trey Lance or Justin Fields if Fields is available. Have you guys heard anything?
Well, first of all, if Mike Shanahan was at the 49ers presser, that's breaking news, because it's Kyle Shanahan who's the head coach. But anyway, I heard the presser and bits of it. I didn't hear all of it, but yeah, I mean, they're grilling Kyle Shanahan on why he would go up and get Mac Jones, because Mac Jones is being downgraded because of his lack of athletic ability, which it's just dumb. These media guys are just they just kind of like pick up on whatever is being put out there, either on Twitter or on the 4-letter network, and they kind of run with it here. But if you sit down and watch Mac Jones play, you'll know why the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan specifically loves Mac Jones. Is because of his accuracy, his processing ability, his ability to be, hit receivers in stride, and that's what he wants. That's what Garoppolo cannot do for him in the 49ers offense. So whether it's Trey Lance or Mac Jones, either one of these guys I think would be great with Kyle Shanahan. And I think Shanahan was just getting frustrated with all these questions being peppered his way. And he just said, basically, we felt comfortable with the quarterback there that we were going to take. Now, since we have all this time, we went ahead and did our due diligence. Now we have another quarterback or 2 that we're comfortable and taken as well. So they're just kind of going through. And of course, if you believe the reports, it's between Mac Jones and Trey Lance. So those are the 2 options there for the 49ers. So, apparently Trey Lance has been knocking these guys off in interviews. Kudos to my partner here who early on said that his off the field football acumen and character is off the charts, was what he had heard, and that's playing true now with what these coaches are going through with these interview process. And Trey Lance is just that impressive right now, apparently on the whiteboard and in meetings and all that stuff. So he's making it difficult for the 49ers. So I believe it was Chris Mortensen came out last week and said it's about in the 90th percentile range, and Mac Jones is the 3rd overall pick. But now with this, little loop there at Thornton. So it looks like it's down to 2 players, basically, if you believe all the reports. It's just a matter of who's going to go. But, these people that are just knocking Mac Jones, they obviously haven't studied his tape and haven't seen this kid play.
Interesting. All right. Neil, you have any thoughts there, or should we go to our next question? We've got a lot of questions.
Oh, no. I mean, I got a bunch of thoughts. Some of them are R-rated, but
you're allowed.
Football thoughts, Neil. Thoughts.
I mean, these media nerds that don't watch an ounce of tape, that just go and regurgitate this garbage about players that they have no idea what the hell they're talking about. It boils my blood, man. And that's just where I'm going to leave that, so I don't go off on a rant.
There you go. Zachary Sullivan says, you guys, very impressive review of all these prospects. It's truly a marvel thinking of the work you guys put into all these prospects. About how much time do you generally put in on a player when you're scouting them? Daniel, starting with you.
Well, first of all, thank you for that compliment, Zachary. Appreciate it. Well, it depends, right? We've talked about it a couple of times. It was a couple of shows ago where it just, and I think Dane Buegler was on, and we talked about, it takes certain players I can put on 2 games and I'll have a feel for them. I have a good feel for them. I can kind of break them down. I can kind of project a player. Certain players, it takes 5 games, 6 games, 7 games, sometimes even 10 games, where at one point I get frustrated. I just kind of have to walk away from my screen and just kind of clear my mind and just kind of get fresh eyes and come back and just rewatch things all over again. Because, you'll see a play where, for example, the safeties, right? We're looking for particular safeties here, guys that can be complement to Eddie Jackson. And, you'll see a play where the guy takes a bad angle to a football and you're like, oh, what's going on here? Well, why is his angles are all offline, off kilter? And then the next 2 plays later, he does a great job there. So you got to kind of watch multiple games. Just watching one game and getting an idea of a player is doing, disservice to the player, because, everyone has bad games. Everyone has bad moments in games. So you just kind of have to watch multiple games. So on just a rule, keep it simple. I watch at least minimum of 3 games per player before I feel comfortable, giving my assessment and my judgment and my projection for the player at the next level. I don't go less than 3 games. It's got to be 3 games or more.
Yeah, about the same. About 2 or 3 games is about the minimum. It is a long process for me, because I go and look up these pro day times. I look up the character stuff, the background of the kid. You put on the games, and to that point, you hope you find cut-ups. You hope you find the film ODK'd, so that you're not having to parse through an entire 3 hours worth of one game film to find everything you need to find. And that's the hard part. Is not all these guys have the perfect, perfectly packaged, film that you want to see. So that, some of these guys, it makes it a little bit harder for work. But, again, there are guys where it's easier to get a feel for them than others. There's guys that have stories and need to sort of research the stories. I wouldn't be surprised if I spent a good solid 2 hours on each guy, just to have a really good, solid foundation of who and what a kid is.
And do not watch highlight tapes, guys, because highlight tapes are all highlight tapes for a reason.
It's all fluff, man. It's all fluff. Mm-hmm. Wise man once said, everybody makes a play on a highlight tape. Get these highlight tapes out of here. And that's what, honestly, a lot of these people that do these mock drafts, that's what they base their evaluations off of, guys. Mm-hmm. They watch these highlights that, Joey Bag of Donuts throws together, in his mom's basement, because he has nothing else better to do with his life. And he makes all these highlight tapes for these kids. And that's what these guys watch. And they say, oh my God, this kid is so explosive and he makes all the plays. Well, yeah, no shit. Right? So you got to go in the film. You got to see what happens in between plays. And, ideally you have the all 22, so you can see every single player on the field at all times. We don't always have the luxury of being able to scout off of all that. Every once in a while, we'll get lucky. Hopefully you get lucky on more than you do on few. But I think in a lot of times what you're able to see on the TV copy is good enough to make a lot of the evaluational bullet points that you need to make. Mm-hmm. With safeties and receiver, with all these birds that play on the perimeter and in the deep third, it makes it kind of hard, right? It makes it kind of hard. It makes scouting the safeties takes just that much longer to get the evaluation right. Right. At least right up here, and what's right up here is always right in Danny's head. But whatever our version of right is. It takes a while with scouting this particular position. So it was a little bit of an elongated process. That's why I'm kind of running on fumes right now. But, the work that Danny and I put in, guys, is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the work that all these scouts actually put in, and how long and drawn out and detailed and monotonous the actual process is. We're just doing sort of the Cliff Notes version here. And trying to get it as close to right as possible. We're talking about a process that really starts in May and ends in April, with a lot of these guys. So it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of nights, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of irritated significant others. But hey, we're bringing you awesome content, and at the end of the week we can sleep.
Well, and everybody is paying you guys lots of compliments, and I echo those, and also add a huge thanks to your families, because you clearly are giving up a lot of time of your personal life to go through this process. Santiago Cordoba asked, do you guys think that the Bears will trade down for more picks if a quarterback is not there in round one? Let me kind of rephrase that and ask you, would you prefer that the Bears try and trade down, maybe late first round, maybe accumulate more second and third round picks? Thoughts on possibly trading down if Ryan Pace is unable to get that one of those coveted 5 top quarterbacks?
We talked about this last week on the cornerback show, and that was an interesting topic about trading back a few spots and getting one of these guys that we can steal out of the early part of the second round, or maybe take a chance on a player that you want to be able to find otherwise. It's a really interesting topic. I haven't really settled on it one way or the other. I mean, one way or the other, I do know that I don't want us to be picking at 20. Excuse me. I don't want us to be picking at 20.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it's in the top 10, or if we do end up trading back, we get a good haul back and get much more chances to hit on a dude. But I think if we're picking at 20, we did something wrong down the way.
Well, for me, although you know me, Neil, I think you've grown to know me now. I love more picks, man. If you give me more picks, that's what I want. However, one thing with trading back down is you're gonna have a team that kind of want to trade back up. And then what are they offering you for the pick? What's the value there? Is there a player sitting out there that could be an instant impact player, like we talked about, for example, the kid from Notre Dame, Jock, the linebacker? It could be a hell of a defensive weapon on your defense. It might not be a great position need, but it's a need, a linebacker, right? Are one of the top 2 or 3 corners sitting there? See who's dropped for you, because if these 5 quarterbacks go in that top 10, good players are going to drop down, particularly defensive players. So, the draft is deep in receiver. The draft is somewhat deep in corner, somewhat deep in offensive lineman on tackles. So, you could probably, if you want to go back down and get one of those players later on in the first round, you could probably, easily do that and get more draft picks. But you just got to see who's available. What are they offering you? Is what they're offering you better than the value of the pick and the player you could possibly draft there? But that's one that makes the draft so fun and so exciting, because you just don't know what's going to happen. Are they going to go up and give up future picks and go get one of these quarterbacks? Are they going to sit at 20, possibly move back? And maybe if they're targeting a guy in the second round, a quarterback, you say you go down to the low 20s, or even like pick 30, for example, just throwing a number out there, you trade back down. Do you now take your quarterback that you're targeting in the second round, take him in the bottom of the first round, even though it might be a little bit high in terms of where you had him projected, for example, but you get that 5th-year option on the quarterback, and now you have this kid. If he hits, you have a guy that you can have for 5 years at least on a rookie contract. So those are things you can kind of play into factor there. So all these little things, these little intrigues that make the draft so much fun for me.
Ace Daniels has a great question. What would it realistically take to trade with the Falcons to move up for a quarterback? So the Falcons are picking 4th in the draft. They've expressed an interest to unload that pick. And so the Chicago Bears, I'm sure, have already had discussions with the Falcons to find out what it will take. What do you think what that will be? Neil, why don't you start with your thoughts on that?
I mean, you're talking about draft capital that's probably going to be maybe 3 to 5 picks deep, depending on what sort of collection of rounds you put together. Mm-hmm. It's been widely thought that moving up all the way to 4 is going to be at least 3 first-rounders. I suppose on draft day you're allowed to put in 4, but I mean it's going to be at least 3 first-rounders. You may have to throw a player in there as well. Mm-hmm. So that's a ton of draft capital, man. We don't necessarily have the resources to be able to do that. But again, I suppose if you're getting the guy that's going to be the face of the franchise for the future, you can leverage as much as you can, because you'll get it back tenfold. So there's 2 different arguments to the coin. You're obviously going to be giving up a ton to get up to 4, though.
So before the 49ers traded up, we were using the Chiefs trading up to get Mahomes in 2017 as the baseline. Right. But I think the 49ers kind of ruined it for everybody by doing what they did, giving them all those picks up. So I mean, if I had to guess, and right now it'd just be a guess, reports are the Falcons are asking for a lot because I mean they're dropping down, they're giving up a player like Kyle Pitts that would be a nice fit in their offense. Their head coach Arthur Smith loves versatile, playmaking tight ends. And I think that'd be a perfect fit for them. So for them to drop down from Kyle Pitts, they would have to get, and my thinking is at least 3 first-round picks and at least 2 second-round picks. Talking about 5 picks here. That's a high price to pay. So, you better be damn sure if you're going to go up there and get it. Like I said, I hate giving up draft picks, but if you tell me that, and this is a question for you guys, if Justin Fields is sitting there, would you give up 3 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks?
Well, but what if he's not? So I'll turn it around and ask.
Well, you can't make that trade unless your guy's is available. So let's say the Bears can't make a trade today because what if Justin Fields is their guy and he's not there? Then you're screwed, right? Okay. So you got to.
Who is our guy then for our mock draft? Who is our guy? I'm going to be talking trade with somebody from Atlanta and some other people. I'm going to be talking trade. So. Who is our guy?
If we're going to assume that it's going to be Lawrence, Wilson, and say Mac Jones. I said the thing is it Mac Jones or is it Trey Lance at number 3? So for sake of this conversation, let's say it's Mac Jones, right? Mm-hmm. For me, Justin Fields. Justin Fields is the guy I'm going up there and getting. Now, okay. 3 first and 2 seconds. That's a steep price to pay. And I love Justin Fields, and I think he's going to be a superstar. But obviously, there's no guarantee on that. It's like I would counter with a first and a third this year, a first and a third next year, and see what happens, right? And that now, if you're Ryan Pace, that's where you're like, all right, do I do this? Do I not do this? And again, I'm just making it up. It could be more than that. It could be less than that. And the one thing that I have heard or learned is the asking price generally drops when a team's on the clock, right? So, for example, if Atlanta's asking for that when they're on the clock, they might say, all right, we'll take 3 1s, a 2. And a 3 or from something like that, for example. So, but, with them now, with this specific case with Atlanta, they might want Kyle Pitts so bad that they might not get off that, that trade demand or that request. So at that point, if you're Ryan Pace, you're not willing to pay the price. Now you move on to the next team that's going to willing to trade with you. And I think if you look at it logically, I think the next destination will be 8. And at 8, is it going to be Justin Fields or is it going to be Mac Jones? And at that point, what does 8 want? Is Mac Jones worthy of you giving up all that pick for 8? So it all kind of works and see what team want, how it works, who's available, who's not available.
Zachary would give up 4 number 1s for either Fields, Lance, or Jones. And
I would do it for Fields. I don't know if I would do it for. I would consider doing it for Fields. I don't know if I would consider doing it for Lance or Jones. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. 4 number 1s is a steep price.
Well, and the predicament that Ryan Pace has built for himself is that he has built a win-now team. He's got all of these aging defensive players who, frankly, they're either starting to look like they're on the other side of the downhill part of their careers or are soon going to get there. I mean, Akeem Hicks is a perfect example. Khalil Mack, how much gas does he have on the tank given, the productivity that we have seen decline? Robert Quinn, so we're hoping that, there's an answer at the quarterback position that can help Ryan Pace achieve his win now philosophy. And if that means having to trade away 3 first-round draft picks, then that's what it has to be because you got a win now roster. And so the question then is Mac Jones the quarterback who could be available that would help you win now because he's run a pro offense, because he's incredibly smart, because he's very accurate. He doesn't have the athletic skills to extend plays, which is what every head coach is looking for. But let's face it, the last 2 quarterback acquisitions for the Chicago Bears have been guys who can't extend plays, Nick Foles and Andy Dalton. So why not Mac Jones? Trade away 3 first-round picks for Mac Jones. Neil?
Yeah, are we at a point to where we can afford not to do it? It's something I've been thinking about. if we're at a point where we need to have the dude in the building now and win now and solve the problem immediately, can we afford to sit this draft out with 5 what we feel are legit dudes and move forward with Andy Dalton and a developmental guy taken in round 3, 4, 5? I don't think so.
Yeah, if it's just 3 first-round picks, I'll do it for Mac Jones and for Justin Fields. But if you're talking about 4 first-round picks and then 2 second-round picks, that's where you're gonna have to sit back and say, all right, I have to think about this a little bit, because now you're sacrificing a lot of your future. And the other thing is, if the Bears do make a trade like this that we're discussing, where they give up multiple first-round picks and second-round picks, that tells me that Ryan Pace is more secure, guys, than we think he is. And I think because if you're ownership and you allow him to mortgage your future like that, that's a big commitment to Ryan Pace. I think that, to me at least, proves that he's more secure in his job than we think he is.
Yeah, and that's like I said a few shows ago. If he gets to a point to where he's going, balls to the wall, hard in the paint in the first round, trading up, trading away assets to get a dude, we know that he's either been urged to do this or said, as long as you show you're going to be aggressive, we're going to go ahead and loosen up the leash on you. I felt that was a realistic possibility probably like 3 or 4 months ago. And it looks like it might, prove to, be true.
I think the only way Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy are not here is if they have a disastrous 2021 season, and and there really are empty seats, not because of the pandemic, but because fans are just annoyed. They're annoyed with Pace. They're annoyed with Nagy. I mean, that's a big part of the reason John Fox was fired. I went to a number of those late season games, and the stadium was 60% full. And so they want asses in those seats so they can sell the merchandise and the concession stuff and make all of that ancillary income. And when you have a franchise where all of a sudden apathy starts seeping into the fan base, then you got to fire your coach, your general manager. You got to make some moves, because that's what will again stimulate the fan base. They'll say, okay, now let's start over. Although, we can get into a long discussion about the whole Ted Phillips thing. I think, his head is on the line here too, just because the fans are, whether it's legit or not that Ted Phillips is part of the problem, the perception is that he is. Yeah. And he's close to retirement anyway, and so I would think that he might be the first one to go if the Bears have a disastrous 2021 season.
That's why I never believed this. Andy Dalton's our quarterback. If you're Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace, you go into this season where you cannot what the bet, if you will. You cannot have Andy Dalton as your starting quarterback, as your own option starting quarterback. Now, if you bring in a young quarterback, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, right, that gives the fan base hope. Now we're waiting for Andy Dalton to have a bad, 2 or 3 game stretch, or now they could pop the rookie in there. So that gives them the hope, and they can buy some extra time for themselves. So that's why I never sunk in that they were going to go with Andy Dalton. He was their quarterback. I don't care how many times their PR department tweeted out QB1. It didn't make a difference for me. There was always a bigger plan, and I think the draft now is the time to see. That's why I said always let's wait and see what happens after the draft before we judge to see this Andy Dalton move.
Yeah. I interviewed Todd Worrell earlier today. He was a member of the 2006 Super Bowl Chicago Bears, and I asked him, does he believe that management really wants to win? And he adamantly said that, yes, they really want to win this for Virginia McCaskey, that Virginia – even more, he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, he said, even more than holding up the Lombardi trophy, she wants to one more time hold up the trophy that's named after her dad, that the George Halas trophy. And that doesn't mean that she doesn't want to win a Super Bowl. Right. She wants to win that NFC championship game and hold that trophy up one more time before she passes. And I'm totally with Cameron Worrell there. He knows this organization better than any of us. He's been around it and had some contact with it over the years after he left the organization. I think, this organization really wants to win, but the problem is that they make bad decisions. in terms of who they've drafted, who they've hired to make those draft picks, et cetera, et cetera. It just hasn't worked out. And perhaps, it all points to Ted Phillips, who is the guy who makes those decisions about who's going to make those football decisions. So that's a big part of the problem. Let's see what else we got here before we pull the plug on today. Cap will go up, salary cap will go up, and we'll be able to spend more in free agency down the road, right? Burn the picks now and get the guy now. That is true, Zach.
That's true, especially if you have a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract. So that gives you so much more leeway in terms of being able to spend. That's how the Bears are able to go get Allen Robinson and get some of these players, Khalil Mack and all these guys, because they had a quarterback on his rookie contract in Trubisky. So I think you get a guy like that. You're right. Great point, Zachary. You bring in a guy on a rookie contract, then you can go and I can fill around him. And with the cap going up, you're right. You're going to be able to get some more players there too. So that's a great point.
Guys, it is time to pull the plug on this edition of Draft on Tap. I feel a little, it's sort of a wisty. I can't find the right word, but I feel a little emotional about it because this officially ends all of the position group shows that we've had. I mean, how many have we had now? Like 15 shows where you guys have gone through position groups and have done these in-depth analysis. You guys have done incredible work. And now it's time to prepare that top 100 list so that we can have a big board for those first 3 rounds. That's what we're going to do tomorrow at 8 p.m. right here on the Barroom Network. And then Wednesday, it is a mock draft to end all mock drafts. We're going to do it in a very unusual and very entertaining way. Mark my words. You don't want to miss that. And then on Thursday, Danny and Niel will support John Buffone, who will anchor our first round coverage. The first time we've ever done it here at the Barroom Network. We've never been live during an actual draft of the first round, and we're going to cover it from the first pick to the 32nd pick, and that's going to be something to watch.
I'm going to be sitting there waiting for you to break in around pick 7 or 8 with some breaking news. I'm going to check my phone. I'm going to be just concentrating on Niel.
God willing.
I'll be waiting for Aldo to break in.
Yes.
God willing.
I'm asking everyone that loves watching our shows. I feel like DM me and I'll send you my phone number. If you hear any rumors or anything, then DM me on my phone. That way I can be the first to put it up for the guys to react to. It's going to be a blast. It really is going to be a blast. And I can't think of 2 better guys to go on this ride with than Danny Shimon and Niel Stopczynski. You guys are the best. And I promise you, we're going to celebrate when this thing is all over. We're going to go out and we're going to celebrate big time. And it's going to be on me.
Hell yeah.
A good time.
Yes, sir.
So for all of us here at the Barroom Network, let your friends know about our coverage this week. It's going to be fantastic. And we will see you tomorrow for our the reveal of our big board. Take care, everyone.
Good night.